Hey tribes, hope you're doing well. You found us in the midst of a bit of a manic week here in the office. Andy's off and about the place. He's up in Ross Trevor at the minute, so I'm here to share some thoughts and give you guys some questions to discuss tonight. So Sunday past we kicked off a new series called Worship Is, and the first week was Worship Is for Everyone. And Andy looked at this idea of what actually takes place when we collectively come together and declare who Jesus is and worship together. And he wanted to look at the idea of when we come together, it's to remember, it's to reflect, but it's to be reinfected by hope and life to go out into our city. He shared that it was kind of like the halftime team talk. When we come together, we remember who he is and we go out into our everyday, ordinary week. So as Andy began to unpack on Sunday, we don't worship a religion or a good living philosophy, but we worship a God who is active and alive, who is interested in our lives and who wants to give us everything that he's made available to us in the context of worship. And Andy shared a story about how it's just normal for his kids to come down from upstairs and find him and Dana in the living room or in the kitchen worshipping. And this was a similar experience for myself on the receiving end of this. I remember mornings and evenings coming down into my living room to see my dad and my mum on their faces worshipping God. And I remember how much that deeply impacted me. I knew that they were passionate about something. I knew that they had faith and were just so caught up in this experience of worship that they knew that it was a place where they could go and encounter and meet God. So this leads me on to my first question. I suppose it's actually a challenge, and that is, what are you passionate about? What are you passionate about? Are you passionate about Jesus, or do you get passionate about things that don't really matter? And I suppose the challenge with that is, how do people see that and recognize that around you? Is it your kids see you being passionate about stuff that doesn't really matter? Is it your peers see you being passionate about things that don't really matter? Or do people get the opportunity and chance to see you being passionate about what's really important, and that's Jesus? So the second thing Andy looked at was this whole idea of how worship is connected to promise. That the things that we worship always have promises attached to them. We looked at how if we worship money, that it is to make us become secure and be fulfilled. If we worship our bodies and we go after sculpting them into the perfect shape, that we believe that it will silence and fulfill all our insecurities. And if we worship a God, a type of God that everything will go well in life. But you see, the God that we worship never actually promised that. In fact, Jesus said that in this life you will face many trials and tribulations, but do not fear, for I have overcome the world. And what Andy did is he looked at the story of Moses. He looked at the story of how Moses was leading the people of Israel out of slavery into the promised land that God had ordained and promised to them. And in the middle of that, there's always a process, isn't there? There's a process between the promise and the fulfillment. And this is where Moses found himself with the people of Israel. And he left the people of Israel at the bottom of the mountain, and he went up to meet God and to worship him and to talk to him. And in the middle of that, the people of Israel on the bottom of the mountain get frustrated and fed up. And Andy touched on that, that whole idea of how many of us actually find ourselves in that moment today, where we're in the process and we're maybe frustrated and fed up. But Moses came back down and he met with the Lord and he talked to him. The Lord was frustrated at what the people had done, and he said, Moses, go on ahead, have the promise that I have given to you, have the land, but I will not go with you. And Moses began to talk to the Lord and said he did not want to go unless his presence went with him. See, Moses understood that the promise, in fact, the greatest promise that the Lord had made, was his presence. So this leads me to my second question. How many of us find ourselves in that process today? How many of us find ourselves in the moment between the promise and the fulfilment? Why don't you chat among yourselves about how you work in that, in the midst of that, and how worship can be the answer to actually experiencing and encountering God, to know that his promise was never that everything would go well, but his promise was his presence in the midst of the process. So guys, as you come to a close tonight, I know that for many of you, you're going to create a moment to worship God together. And I know for some of us, we're on a journey with this whole worship thing, that it feels deeply uncomfortable when we're in those moments, when we're surrounded by people, especially when we're in somebody's house, touching shoulder to shoulder. But what I want to encourage you to do tonight, like we did in the early Vineyard days, when the Vineyard movement was birthed and began in a house, they all felt deeply uncomfortable and awkward as well. But one of the things they did was they closed their eyes and they began to meet and encounter God. So tonight, as you worship together, why don't you create loads of space in your worship to just close your eyes and reflect and remember and be reinfected by hope and life as you worship the God of the impossible, as you worship the God who is with you in the midst of the process. So guys, I want to encourage you to go for that. Be liberated and feel the freedom that is experienced in worship, and really go for it tonight. So guys, have a good week. I hope tonight goes really well for you guys. I'll be worshipping and praying for you guys. Have a great week.